We're missing two this morning.
Yes.
So, are we good? All right.
There you
We'll
go.
go ahead and get started. I'll call the meeting to order. Becky, would you do the roll, please?
I sure will. Jim Sheenline, Mike Book, Tom Kitson,
Present.
Larry Mimini,
Here.
Tim Bibbins, Nancy Naylor,
Present.
Jennifer Dallas.
Here.
All right. Thank you for everybody. Good morning. Jeremy, do you have anything for us besides what's on the agenda? All right, Paul?
Other than what's on the agenda, I just wanted to let the finance team and the other community members here know. We went through our second due date on Friday, September 6th. We've collected all but 2,500 parcels out of almost 29,000, meaning these will be late parcels yet to come in. And we'll have another distribution at the probably around the 23rd of September.
It's about 10%.
Yeah.
How does that track other years? Just out of curiosity.
Similar.
Similar.
And I would say of that 10%, that 2,500, probably about 800 to 1,000 of those, or close to half of those, are Woodhaven.
Yeah.
So dollar wise, we don't even have 10% yet to collect. So the team did a great job. I just want to give a shout out to the team, and they did a fantastic job of keeping up with everybody at the counter, all the mail, all of the electronic payments, everything. They did a fantastic job.
Good deal. All right. Yeah, Larry.
Just a little, I want to commend them for going around to the banks, talking to the banks, and I see him in Ashton a lot.
Yeah.
Well, both terms, both. I was like, that was kind of nice of you to be in person, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
yep.
Well, now that the interest rates are up, it's worth his time to get around and seeing everybody. Doing some of that schmoozing, and
Well-
working those interest rates.
He's there in person thanking the bank for collecting our money, so
Yeah, that's right.
I appreciate it. Okay.
All right, moving on. Clay, do you have anything for us besides your report? All right, Dean Keen. Dean and Keen. I'm gonna start rhyming. Mike. Okay, Nancy, Stacy, Sarah, Amy. All right, awesome. All right. We got approval of minutes from both. We've got two there, the August 15th Finance Committee meeting and the budget hearing meeting, day 3. Any additions, corrections from the submitted minutes? Hearing none, move to approve the minutes. Moved by Naylor, second by Kitson. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, motion carried. Treasurer's monthly financial report. Paul, go ahead.
All right, and it's actually a quarterly, so I did leave a sheet on the desk there on the table for you guys to sign. Probably want to point out, as I did last month, cash balances, as I told you, would come way down. We did have a significant distribution in August of about 38 million in the agency funds, which is our property tax. So your cash balance is significantly down. The other thing I want to point out on the revenue and expenses. So through August, we're at about $750,000 deficit. And as compared to last year, we were at 336,000 excess. But in going over it, I noticed one of the larger expenses in August this year that was not there last year. I paid the bond payment for the LEC in August of 500,000 versus last year in September. So you take that out, your deficit drops to about 250, and then you're a lot closer. The other thing would be the transfer for our property tax is a slightly different this year to last year, which also makes up a little. So all in all, we're tracking to where we believe we should be for revenues. And expenses are real tight as well. So we'll see how the next quarter goes. That's it. Other than that, unless you guys had some questions on that.
Any questions for Paul? The one thing, Paul, where do you think, where are we tracking as far as the end of the year
I
The
think
budget.
if all goes well in the next 3 months, we should come real close to budget. I mean, I think we will be, I'm hoping somewhere within 250,000 plus or minus to where we thought we were going to be. The biggest thing that I see is our PPRT tax. We had planned $1 million for 2024. That's going to come in about 700,000. So that was a significant drop, even bigger than what the state had even given us a heads up on, that we had not planned on. But sales tax is coming in a little bit higher than anticipated. Not a lot, maybe 100,000. As long as we can keep our expenses to a minimum over the next quarter, I think we should be able to make that difference up.
Any questions for Paul? All right. Entertain motion to approve the quarterly financial report, moved by Bivens, seconded by Naylor. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All
Aye.
opposed, motion carried. Okay, and I will send around the sheet for that, for the quarterly signature. All right, moving along, we have insurance committee. Nancy, do you have anything for us on insurance? Liram, do you have anything for Gregco?
No, I did ask him, not related, 60,000 people came and see the big boy in that area. Rochelle.
Oh, I saw the pictures on that. So did that didn't go through, that was going north and south, right? It was on the Union, it was going east and west. Oh, okay, all right. Yeah. Yeah, I know there's a lot of people that it's a big deal. Yeah. Yeah, I was out west one time and first time I ever, the train fanatics, my cousin and I had stopped at this bridge and it was a railroad bridge there in the Continental, in Colorado. And there was this group of people and I couldn't figure out what they were doing. And here it was, is they were waiting for the train to come through. And it wasn't even a special train. It was just a train. Yeah, it's amazing. Anyway, all right, thanks for that. Administrator's report, Jeremy.
Just wanted to, thank all the department heads that we've been working with over the last, 2+ months diligently, going through this budget in depth, in detail. Paul Reed from Treasurer's Office, the finance team here. It has been, an adventure, and we, have went from staring down a, close to $2 million gap. And we've trimmed that down, which we're going to go over today and how we've been able to do that. I think that the thing to continue to think about is, we've asked folks to figure out ways how we could really make this budget work, balance this out this year. We've been able to come up with a budget that makes sense for everyone and tries to identify and work with everybody's needs as well, knowing that in the next, year to 2 years, it should balance out a little bit easier. We shouldn't have as much of a gap to be dealing with. So, I want to thank everybody involved because it has been kind of a heavy task this year, at least from my perspective. You've all gone through this a handful of times. I have not. This is my first rodeo. So it was a lot of fun. So thanks.
Trial by fire.
That's right. Don't fire me though.
All right, thanks, Jeremy. Do we have, Sarah, do you have anything for us today that you want to report before you do your quarterly next month? Okay, all right. Very good. Thank you. We have 3 Joseph E. Meyer resolutions and they are on board. If anybody's perused them. And I'll entertain a motion to move that to executive, be put on the agenda. Moved by Mimini, seconded by Kitson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, motion carried. Mr. Book, good morning. You snuck in when I had my back turned. Okay. Move on to number 11, monthly sheriff's report. Anything, I haven't had a chance to read it actually. Sorry, Clay. Anything you want to point out on that report?
Well, I guess the last page on the report, some staffing changes. I lost a patrol deputy last month or this month. I also lost a corrections deputy. Both went to the private sector. Deputy Presley is up on active military service, so he's away for likely over a year. Sergeant McGrail is still on active military orders, so he's not due back until mid-October. Got a correctional deputy that's been off. It's going to be off for a significant amount of time because his wife was severely injured in a traffic crash, so he has to take care of her. And another deputy just had a baby girl, so he's going to be off for about 4 to 6 weeks. So it's going to be slim pickings for next month.
I can hear the question.
Yeah,
I knew the
I-
question was coming and I'm going
Clay,
to
I'm
point to
sorry.
Mr. Kitson.
I'm sorry, I know I've asked you this, but have we ever talked to the adjutant general regarding these guys on? Some of these guys, every second or third year, they take a year off for military. Now, I'm old, but in my days, if you volunteered to go, your employer didn't have to keep your job. I know things have changed in the last that many years, but somehow I feel like we're getting taken advantage of, and there's nothing we can do about it.
There's nothing we can do about it. That's USERRA is the law. So yeah, we have to allow them to leave for their military service.
So the taxpayers of Lee County help these guys get to
Well, the,
retirement. I appreciate the military. I sincerely do. And I know what they're doing, but it's killing us of financially what's going on. And they end up with 2 pensions by the time they're done.
I guess one positive attribute is that we only have to pay if they are making more with us than the military. We have to pay that difference so they're made whole. Otherwise,
Well, and I understand that part, but we're replacing this guy somehow with overtime or something. So it's a huge expense to the county.
you're right. Absolutely right.
All right, thank you.
So Clay, I don't want to get in, I want to be careful if we're going to get into, if you'd like to talk about specific personnel issues, we can go into executive session, but I don't think that's necessary. But I'm curious, because the county, we bent over backwards trying to make sure we had a compensation package that held people to us. The 2 we lost to other ventures, was that just doing different things, going?
Just law enforcement's not cut out for everybody.
Gotcha.
So the deputies are very grateful for the compensation package that we got in the last contract. It didn't matter to these 2 individuals. There's just other varying reasons why they decide to leave.
Okay.
And actually, we should be able to hopefully attract a nice lateral on the corrections list. And then we'll be looking for a new patrol deputy as well. So put feelers out.
Very good. Well, good luck with that. Anything else you'd like to cover? Okay, thanks. Thanks, Clay. All right, we have no unfinished business. New business, the budget wrap-up discussion. Now, what we thought, now we have a budget meeting wrap-up, which we will have the opportunity to go into the weeds and really hit it hard, go department by department. You'll have the opportunity to ask whatever questions when you see the differences between the 2. We have that ready to go today as well if there's something. But what we were going to do this morning was just kind of do the overview and the bottom line of where we got and where our bottom line on the budget is as of right now. So having said that, who wants to lead, Jeremy or Paul?
Paul's got it up, and he's gonna have a better view at it, and we'll probably start tag teaming a little bit, but he's definitely can get it started.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
So what you guys have in your onboard is a view by department, if you will, and it gets long and tedious. What we've done is we've built some pivot tables to give you more of a consolidated look. So this is county general up on the screen, what you're seeing there. This is county general revenues on a pivot table. So I'll just highlight a couple of things. So property tax at 7.3, sales tax at 2.5, And you can see, this is kind of in column E here, this is the 2024 run rate versus the 2025 run, our estimate, if you will, right? Again, these are all estimated numbers. I want you guys to make sure you realize these are not solid, meaning this is what the view should look like, but they can always change. So this is our revenues in county general, because that's what you're really focusing on for the most part. We do have other departments like the health department and the highway department, the animal control, all of those that run kind of on their own fund, if you will. But this is county general. This is where we had our deficit, so to speak, of what we were chasing. So in this picture, what you're seeing, this is revenues. So we've got the revenues tied in at 17.782 million. Inside of that is a transfer from capital into county general of 200,000 to kind of cover any deficit between the expenditures and the revenue estimates. There's a transfer out for EMA costs. That's a cost into a different fund, but we have to fund that through county general. So that's going out. And then solid waste is another transfer in of 200,000, where we have to keep a $2 million balance in solid waste. We're anticipating we'll have $200,000 extra to move into county general. And then this 280,000 would be what we should be transferring out to help support the health department. So that gets you to the 17.7. So then as I move down the page here, now this pivot table is the expenses by department. And as you see here, it's 17,776. It's about a $6,000 delta, meaning we're $6,000 to excess, meaning we're okay. We're in a $6,000 excess position. We spent less than we have transfer ins of revenue. As you can see, there's countywide, inside this countywide $2.5 million. 1.1 of that is actually the LEC bond payments that so that cost gets transferred, or that out of the public safety tax money to county general, and then we pay it out of county general. So that's why your countywide is so high compared to other departments. Clay's sheriff's department is at 6.9, and that's in and of itself, he's got the largest department, so that's why you would have that cost there. And then these are just all the other costs. What I wanted to kind of show you, maybe you're seeing the numbers here, right? But we also built a percentage to costs. And this is not this is just a visual for you guys. So really, when you look at all of those costs, well, countywide is about 14% of your county general costs. And then you just go down the line. Most of your departments are between 2 and 6% cost. And then obviously the sheriff has 39% of the costs. And that's just due to the nature of his office. He's got a 24/7, 365-day office that runs every day. So he's going to have more expense. But it does give you a view of what's driving all of your costs in a percentage wise compared to other ones.
And that doesn't, just so that we're clear, when you add in, because this doesn't include the capital
Correct.
expenditures.
This does not include capital expenditures. This is just the county general 001 fund, as we call it in the accounting world. So anyway,
Just so the committee understands that so this doesn't reflect, the expense that we have in the maintenance department and the investments that we've made across the street, and also the ongoing expense with Clay's cars and that kind of thing.
So back up to the revenue and the transfer ins and outs. I just want to make sure everybody, understands. If I were to highlight just our revenue that we typically get, say, property tax, sales tax, income tax, all the things that come from the state, different things like that. It's basically 16.7 million. Now our expenditures are 17.7. So there's quite a significant difference, right? But $1 million of that is the bond payment in that expenditure that we're getting from public safety tax. Public safety tax is not shown here because that specifically has to be used for public safety expenditures. So it's not a county general revenue fund. So we offset it right below. So this $1,016,000 is the anticipated move of money from public safety tax into county general, and then county general can pay that bond payment. And there's typically 2 bond payments a year, one in August, September, and one in February, March. So we have 2 different bonds. One is with US Bank, the other one is with Amalgamated Bank in Chicago. Each of them are sitting on a 3.4% interest. Today, I would not recommend any early payout. Just keep paying that bond. We're making money on money. So the US Bank has a payment through 2029. The Amalgamated is through 2039. So one is actually a 10-year bond. The US Bank was a 10-year bond. The other was a 20-year bond.
So Paul, before you leave here, one thing, and I think I understand it, but you have it grouped as the income tax, and that's actually showing a decline, which that also includes PPRT.
Correct.
And that shows the reduction of PPR. That's okay.
Yeah, so we had planned $1 million for 2024. Like I said, we're going to come in somewhere around 700, probably. And the state has already said 2025 is another 30% drop from that. So PPRT was our saving grace during the COVID years, I'll call it. For some reason, and the state, I've asked multiple people in Springfield, how do you guys calculate this? Why did this drive so high? Nobody can give me an answer. It's just, you're trying to find, the wizard behind the green curtain. Nobody can give me the answer. Well, they still can't give me an answer now as to why it's dropping so much. But income tax in and of itself, outside of PPRT, is slowly climbing a little bit. So I think they're kind of manipulating the two. I think there's a calculation between the two, but I don't know that for sure. So it's a guess. Tim probably knows it. He spent time down there. So. So, so that 1.016 is the transfer in from public safety. There's 200,000 coming in from capital. I think I went over this, but so really what this tells you, if you look into it, the 200 from capital and the 200 from solid waste is really covering about $400,000 of our deficit that we were trying to balance. Thank you, Tim. Balance. Yeah. So, you can look at that and say, hey, yes, we have a balanced budget, but we do have to use some of our reserves to balance. That's high level. What would you guys like? Do we need to go? Do you want to go farther? Do you want to, is there something specific you want to see? Jim, I'll leave it up to you, I guess, to kind of.
Well, and I'll leave it up to like I said earlier, we've got the meeting on the 24th where we'll go department by department. And so we're taking no action today on the budget It's really up to the committee what you guys want to see.
Did you guys want to take a look into capital and see where kind of things are at right now? I don't think we've discussed that very much in the previous meetings. We could probably pop up the capital tab, Paul, and just take a look at that.
I'll let Jeremy take the capital. I can drive the file here.
So on the capital side, we're still kind of working through some of these things, but some of the larger expenses that are built into capital are again ongoing maintenance within the facilities throughout the properties here that we have in the county. We have a lighting project that is, if you look at the first column, you'll see an FY24 remaining budget. A lot of this is rollover. Okay, so some of this are monies, expenses that monies that have not been expended, projects that were not completed, and we're moving over to FY25. So it's not like this is something that is a new expense that we're planning for. A lot of these are old expenses, previous expenses that have not been completed or projects. So that's where you'll see like the LED lighting, the miscellaneous concrete. That's going to be we're trying to plan pavement and sidewalk repairs for the old courthouse. The discretionary fund that ties into that's built in every year as random expenses pop up for maintenance that we have not budgeted for. Clear?
On that LED lighting, you still haven't looked at ComEd?
Yep, they are. So they're working.
What is that cost over there now?
We're just estimating.
Just estimating?
Yeah, it's just an estimation.
Because that would be a sales tax.
Correct. So what's
And we don't
happening?
pay sales.
So Eric is working with, I do believe, Helm and ComEd to work on that energy efficiency program. There might be some other costs that are built into that. That's why we just have an estimation in there. I know where you're getting. We just don't know yet. The blacktop repair, there is going to be quite a significant repair project across the street by the old LEC, in between the old LEC as well as the E911 center. That needs to happen. That's part of that, along with some other things. These are just some estimated costs that we're putting into play. There is going to be a little bit of a rollover with the HVAC. That is the old LEC. So as we're trying to plan for the old LEC project and build out there's some costs that are built into that we know we need to get done ahead of time. And that is replacement of some of the HVAC and internal infrastructure of that. There's the elevator that needs to, their full project scope on that, where it has to actually come down another level. That's going to be for proposed access to an internal parking area that folks can then get up and then into the courts room or courts building from there. So that's why that project that number is in there. Again, as you can see, that was already budgeted in FY24. They did some work on that elevator. It came out of that, but not to the full scope that we were looking for. So that's a rollover cost. The demo construction's the same thing, rollover cost. That is to start internally with our crew or subcontractors and subcontractors gutting and demoing out the old LEC in preparation for the build out. Keep in mind that build out is, scope is not fully realized yet. What I would like to do in talking with our facilities group Tuesday. Days go by when you're having fun real fast. Tuesday is get an internal committee together on that project and to really understand what we need as a county for that build out for our departments as we continue to grow and evolve, and make sure that we have a couple different plans maybe in place, understand the cost of those, and then make sure that we look at that in depth and move forward as a committee structure, knowing that we're investing in that project purposefully. So 4 years down the road, we're not like, man, I really wish we did this, and now we have to spend another $1 million, right? So that's what we're trying to do with that project at the time. But there is some baked in costs there that we know we already have to do, and that's why that's a rollover from FY24. The old, you see the the next line down is the HVA project here that is baked into the FY24 cost that is replacing the VAVs here. If you go to pretty much the majority of the departments, you'll say, hey, it's either, for some reason, one of the units isn't working at the time. If you walked into my office earlier today, it was 58 degrees. As the maintenance department was trying to heat it up, it was actually cooling it down. So we knew we had to replace the VAVs anyway, and that should be done by the end of the year. They're hoping to actually come in towards the end of this month. If you go to flooring replacement, we have $125,000, and that is for the majority of the fourth floor flooring in the new courthouse. So that's new carpet throughout the courtrooms, hallways, I do believe, as well as the new courtroom. There's some potential costs baked in there for cleaning and repurposing of some tile in some bathrooms. But that's what we have budgeted in there for now. With the maintenance schedule, and I know you don't see it right now, but we do plan to have $75,000 in flooring, year over year until we get all the flooring updated throughout our buildings. If you look throughout this room needs to be done. There's going to be some replacement repair of the actual terrazzo down the road in this court or in this building, as well as, Stacy, the probation office is going to need some work. The health department offices need to be updated. So it's just going to be a continual cost. The LEC, the HVAC control replacement, that's something that should have been done when we built the LEC. So our systems do not connect with the LEC system, the controls. So anytime there has to be a change or adjustment, the maintenance crew, our internal maintenance crew has to call the third party to get a change done or an update. And it is very difficult to do. So that is something that we are trying to plan for to make sure that we could have the maintenance department can have full control over all of our buildings internally for our HVAC controls. The window seals and repair for the old courts, that is this building. All the seals and the majority of these windows need to be replaced. That's going to help out with energy efficiency and costs. The Procom system. So that is something that we are trying to do right now. This building, we have a little bit of an issue with keys. So all of our entry doors are keyed entries. And we have a tracking system internally, but you still never know when a key's being duplicated. That's one aspect. So for security, but the second issue is staffing, and either a maintenance member or a bailiff comes over to make sure that within our own policies that this building is secured and locked down at 4:30. With the Procom system, it'll be a badge system just like across the street. You'll be able to, after hours, if you need to get into the building, use that badge to get in, unlock the door, get in. Then we're able to then see who's coming into the building after hours. It's controlled. The doors can automatically lock at 4:30. We're able to save on some staff costs, and we could use those team members more efficiently across the street. So that's what we're looking at for that. Sure.
Can I ask a question
Yeah.
about that? Because I was approached to do something like this in my businesses, but don't you have to change the whole mechanism of the door also?
Yeah,
Because
so that's part of the,
compression does not close the door. Sometimes they
Right.
leave it open.
right. So that's
But
part
it
of the,
tells you on your computer that it's closed.
yeah. So on the next line, that's part of the cost. So we have an exterior door replacement. So that's going to be with the mechanisms built into that. So not
Money.
Yeah, well, not just that, but this rear door here, the south side door, doesn't work anymore. So if you walk in half the time, there's that automatic assist. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it closes, sometimes it doesn't. That lock doesn't even work half the time. So we already knew that we had to replace that door. So that's part of the reason why it's like, all right, if we're going to replace this door, why don't we look to replace it with a new system? And that's why we're looking at those costs. We're just trying to eliminate long-term costs down the road. Plaster repair, that is old courts. So we had some funds in there before, but if you come into the north entrance, which I consider our main entrance, you could see all of the paint falling off of off the brick on the interior in there. There's plaster repair throughout the majority of the offices. If you go downstairs in the elections office, if you go into the assessor's office, it is pretty bad. So, and that is just from water, before the tuck pointing was done, water coming into the building and creating a lot of damage. So, we're just trying to take care of that a little bit at a time, and we believe we get the majority of it done. Now, again, when you're looking at these numbers, that does not mean that this project is either going to cost that much and or is going to get done next year. Okay. We're just trying to plan for it. Hopefully the maintenance team and the maintenance crew can take care of a lot of this internally. Not sure if that's going to happen. That's what our goal is, right? As Eric and his crew, as he's trying to build out a more talented team and continue to build the skill set of the team he currently has. A lot of that, we're going to try to look to internalize some of those expenses instead of subbing some of that out. If you go down to highway site work, that's a cost from rollover from last year. That's for the new facility. We are still obviously moving forward with that and continuing to look for other grant opportunities. But the phase one aspects of that are still moving forward, and the money's in there for the option. So if we're ready to execute on that, we have it. The Motorola body cams. So this is a cost that is being rolled over from FY24. And I'm not sure, we're going to take care of that in 24? Or is that just the additional, right? That's right. So that's the additional cost of adding the carryover to that. There is we have to put in $1 million for the case management software. We're not sure where things are at, hoping to get a grant for that, but unsure where that might land. So we have to prepare for that cost. And I think we're still trying to lock down the actual cost of that, the total at the time, but we believe that $1 million is a safe number. Is that correct, Amy? All right, perfect. So then you can look in there, 75,000. So that actually has to be removed on the 75,000 for there. So some of this has to still be cleaned up. So as we look through some of these things, just realize that this isn't the final number. So that's already baked into the 125 for flooring that we saw above in the maintenance capital. Okay. You see the portable radios, we have a cost. So we're working with the Sheriff's Department and Motorola on updating their radio system. They have a very hard time, depending upon where they're at in the county and or even within our own buildings, on using their radios. It is a serious issue and security concern. So in talking with Deputy Chief and the Sheriff, we are going to essentially project to schedule these out and finalize the 44 radios over a potential 4-year plan here. We're going to get, I think, 11 to 13 in year one, and kind of continue to move through that and make sure that the priorities, the people that need them, like the bailiffs and some of the folks at the LEC, the current LEC, have those updated, and then we'll schedule that out. So they were pretty good with that. The block safety cameras, that is a system that we actually currently have in place. We have a few throughout the county right now, and that is an annual cost to just utilize those cameras, and it's a service fee. Essentially what those do is those, as folks drive through and pass one of those cameras, it flags a system if it's a stolen vehicle, if they're out for a warrant, and some significant pieces like that. It's not looking for, oh, my license plate sticker is expired. Like that's not what it's going to get you for. It's really to try to continue to work within the internal public safety sector on making sure that if there's a need or a vehicle that's been identified and flagged, we can process that internally. And we've already been able to utilize a few of the cameras that we have in place. So at some point, it would be nice to have the state's attorney and the sheriff talk about, what that's already done in the 2 weeks we've had a few implemented. So with the squad car purchases and working with the Sheriff's Department, we have typically they're doing 4 a year in their cycle. We're trying to talk about different opportunities to maybe move that to 3 or 2, depending upon where the current vehicles are at in mileage. We'd like to try to create a bank of vehicles for extras in case there is an accident, one goes down, We have 2 or 3 that they are able to, that are already on site that they could use. So we're going to start cycling, trying to retain a few of the older vehicles and keep those as extras. So for that, it says 4, but in FY 23 or 5, we are actually going to purchase 3. There is going to be a board action request that comes on the executive committee for a new vehicle purchase this year, which will account for one of the 4 that we're expecting for next year. And the reason for that is because we have already received payment from Sauk Valley Community College for that use of that vehicle. So we're going to put it into this current budget cycle. If you keep going down, the state's attorney's video storage system, there's $200,000 that's built into that. And that is just an upgrade into the storage system that they have, I do believe, as we continue to process body cam footage and things like that. So that's just a baked-in need that we were planning for and need to update their internal storage systems. So going down, IT, computer replacements, that's just something that we typically have in there. Battery backups, that's also something that Paul Gorski continues to build in there, making sure that if one of the systems go down, there's a battery backup in place and things could stay powered on. The highway costs, those are rollovers essentially, because we knew that's, you know, we already planned to pay for those this year, but we know the costs are now coming into next year. So that's what those costs are in there for. And then there's that transfer to cover general. So essentially we're looking at, if all were to go into play, you know, $5 million coming out of capital again, when you look at, and Paul could correct me if I'm wrong, but year over year, I mean, the capital budget may look like $3-4 million, but not everything's always coming out of that. So there's a lot of rollover costs. But we do know that it's really not sustainable to say, hey, we're going to pull $5 million out of capital next year. We're just having to budget and plan for that if necessary. I think that's the deepest dive we've had into capital so far. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions in regards to capital budget? So what we'll have anticipated, we'll have the kind of the loose ends cleaned up, Jeremy, for the 24th meeting, and we'll have the final version for everybody to peruse.
That's right.
So keep in mind, you know, not meaning to beat the dead horse, but right now, Paul, what do we have in capital?
Well, the cash balance is about 8 million with an anticipated, you know, probably million still yet to spend, maybe some return on some stuff too, that I would anticipate somewhere around 7.5 to 8 as a cash balance at the end of 2024. So Jeremy kind of laid it out. Yeah, you know, we have 5 million here as an estimate to what we would like to do. Doesn't mean it's going to happen because you cannot sustain that.
In our financial policy with the increase in budget, what is that number that we have to
We would
retain?
probably need another 2.5 to close to 3, you know, to you know, in capital just for our policy of 90-day supply of cash, right?
Yeah. So I guess the dead horse that I will continue to beat, it looks like that with our cash balance and having a balanced budget, you know, and I want to compliment Jeremy and Paul and Reed and the job that they did in putting us together from where we were 1.4, $1.6 million in deficit as we came in. But we have challenges because we have needs that is obvious as we look through capital. And it's going to be a challenge to get all of those projects done, even over time. And some of those, you know, we can kick the can down the road for here and there, but some of them just got to get done. And we have the reality of having to have that fund balance per our policy, and which is a good policy, and we need to stick to that. But that grows over, as our budget grows, that financial reserve that we have in place has to grow as well. And we always have to keep that in mind. So any questions on capital?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead, Larry.
Part of that $5 million, isn't that some ARPA money in there? That there's no ARPA money in
No,
that 5
there's
million?
no ARPA money, for the most part has been, well, not necessarily expended, but it's already been tied to a specific project. Capital and ARPA are two different funds so that we can keep them separated. So anything you see here up on the screen in terms of expenditures for what we need is gonna all come out of capital. There's nothing available for ARPA. You know, there's no ARPA money left, if you will. Because our biggest expenditure from the year, this year that we spent ARPA on was the HVAC over in the new courts. And I know they're still working on that to
That's
make it
why I said that,
functional.
because I saw HVAC over there twice, and I thought that was part of the.
Well, one is gonna be your old LEC. There's some work there. There's actually, I think it's on there 3 times, because one's old LEC. Once you start remodeling that and reconfiguring that, you're gonna need to do some HVAC work there. One is obviously still the work that's gonna be going on with the new courts, because that cost was actually more than what ARPA could fund, in terms of what we had left in ARPA. And then the third one, I think, is here in this building for those VAVs, the control valves that kind of control your heat and air conditioning. So yeah, that'll hit probably this year. So yeah, unfortunately, the money we got with ARPA, which was fantastic, also kind of saved us over the last 4 years, if you will. I mean, it was $6.6 million, and you know, we needed every bit of it to help us. I mean, there's a lot of mechanical maintenance, just building updates that need to be done. You can't let a building go for too long or it will fall down around you.
Right. And that's what, you know, when you look at a lot of those expenses outside of the other, you know, departmental needs, the majority of that is continued maintenance on these buildings and our systems and making sure they're updated and up to snuff, because I mean, it'll look like big numbers now, and I know we need to figure out how to take care of them. But if we wait and wait and wait, that cost is just going to rise. Okay. So that's why we're trying to plan for these things ahead of time, to make sure that there's a preventative maintenance schedule in place and that we're trying to take care of these up front if we can, if the budget allows. And that's what we're looking for.
Thank you.
Yeah, and not to put Amy on the spot here as well, but you know, there's $1 million there that we have anticipated for case management if we have to do that. And I know you're working diligently to get a grant in order to maybe supplement most of that cost or maybe all of it, but we don't know. So this is why we plan for it, because we may have to pony that up, correct?
That's correct. Yes. And we are trying to narrow it down. We are down to 2 vendors right now. We're getting updated quotes and everything. I can say this has been a long time. We've been doing this for a year, but a year ago when we started, it was just for the clerk's office. And over time that has changed to try to maybe possibly add some more departments to get on board. I believe in a perfect world, we'd all be on the same system. So I'm trying to do everything we can to see what all the other departments want and need so it can work for Lee County. I don't want to get something, you know, spend $1 million and 2 years down the road, we have to do it again. You know, we want to plan for 10, 20 years if we can to stick with this one vendor, and they're going to, you know, meet our needs throughout the years as the changes come. So that's why it has taken a long time, but we're getting it narrowed down and we should have a figure. I would hope this budget year, it's possible we could move it into next year, but we're not there yet. We're hoping to get it in this year. So that's our plan.
Tom?
And we have been very fortunate to get court grants over the last 3 years. You know, this year was 1.016 million. So I can't say we're going to get it again. It's not, you know, they'll let us know if it's official, probably October, November. But I can't say right now that we're going to get that.
And then that's why we have it built in the budget so that it's covered.
Right, right. But absolutely, if we get it, we will apply for it.
Right.
And try to put this in there.
And we will give you a standing ovation when we get it. Absolutely.
And maybe a hot cup of coffee.
That'd be great.
Tom, you had a question?
Okay, having missed a meeting, I apologize for that. Have we discussed and explained how we saved this $1 million on the budget, or is that something you're gonna discuss, or? mean,
That's
we-
part of the deep dive.
Okay, we're gonna do
And
that the
that
24th,
we'll
okay.
do on the 20, and we can do some of that. In fact,
I just, you know,
so
I
to get
came home
ready
and I
for
got your
that.
message and it's like, wow, I should go on vacation more often with the budget because, but you know, the transparency of it, I just want to see what happens.
No, absolutely.
I don't know if you guys had discussed it already or not, if everybody knew or.
So we have not had that discussion in here
Okay.
yet. And that's what we'll do on the 24th and, probably because that's gonna be part of the homework for everybody here is to look at those details and show. So Paul, why don't we go right now? Pull up a department, I don't care who, but one that where there was some changes, made from the original request.
Well,
So that you can show
yeah.
how, so when you pull the individual departments up and you can see what the changes had been made.
So,
And
so this is the file, what you're seeing on the screen is the file that you guys should have in Onboard, okay? And it's in a PDF format. So from here, this is FY '24. This was the FY '25 request. This is the draft that I kind of showed in those pivot tables and where we're at the high level, right? So this is the revenue. You know, and there's a whole bunch of different accounting lines for revenue, but you know, again, this came back to that 16.7 that I pointed out when I pointed out in the pivot tables. But really what you want to look at, and Jim's kind of saying, hey, what is it? What was the difference between one or the other? Well, here, not to pick on any one department, so I'll just go county-wide, right? So in our insurance, property liability insurance, well, initially we started out at 600,000 as our request. Well, we've done an adjustment and pushed it to 650. So you can see that delta between the two right there, right? So I know it would be tedious and it's going to be a lot of looking at numbers, but maybe that's what you want to look at. But in total, then here's the 1.983 countywide expenditures that are coming in. So you can, maybe you're going to ask yourself, hey, well, what are all of these and why do we have them, right? And then we can deep dive into that at the next meeting. Health insurance costs didn't change. County clerk, as you can see, there's about actually a $70,000 delta between the two that actually is down more than up. So, but again, maybe you guys want to ask about that. Why? What are you doing? Why is it moving? Some of this might be the change was moved where there was an ability to use restricted funds versus county general. So in other words, we were able to look at it and say, hey, I can move some of these costs out of the county general and to a restricted. And I'm not picking on Amy, but I think one of the things that Reed had done and Jeremy, they had talked to her about some of her payroll costs could actually be moved into some of the restricted funds that she has. So it's out of county general and into restricted funds. And I think that's, circuit clerk. So I'm going to show you right here, right? So salary requested was 396. As we have it in the draft, it's 221. Well, I think that's because they moved some of those costs to a restricted fund to be able to use that. And I'm going to give the caveat speech of, okay, that's great. We can do that for 1, maybe 2 years at best. And then you can't do that anymore because you've depleted that restricted fund for what it could be used for. So these are, I won't say one-trick ponies, but we've got to be cautious about how we use that too.
Well, and let me jump in on that, Paul, because that's really an important point in this budget. Tom asked what the magic was that got us to where we got it. You hit on it right there. Every time you heard when we did the hearings, we had the department heads come in and we talked about their requests and we talked about what their proprietary funds were. And every single time that there was an opportunity to pull money out of a proprietary fund that could be used for salaries and Reed and Paul and Jeremy, they pulled that out and they plugged it in, usually, as Paul said, a year to 2 years. So this budget, very clearly, I don't want to be, you talk about transparency. I want to be real transparent. We did a lot of one-trick pony stuff here to make this work. And we have to be cognizant of that because as we go forward, we're going to hit the limit of not being able, that's not going to be there. So just like in previous times, the pre-ARPA days where we were looking at the windfall coming from permits that was filling the holes in the budget, one-time money, we did it in a different way this time to make this budget work. So, yep, Mike.
Question, talking about the one-trick ponies. My question is where does the money in the restricted funds come from? Because what you're saying is we're going to somewhat drain those to fill salaries, and that's something we can only do for a year or two, which I don't disagree with, or that makes sense to me. But then where does money come from that is, how did money get in these restricted funds? Is that, I guess I think my question is 2 parts. How does that money get into those restricted funds? And if they're funded from fees or things within our control, is that something we should also be looking at?
So I think I can probably answer maybe both of those questions for you. And I'm going to use Amy as an example.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, the restricted funds, her restricted funds are fee driven, meaning court driven fees, right? And you can say, well, wait a minute, if they've been building up, why weren't you ever using them before? Well, we just really did a deep dive into some of the statutes to try to find, could we, right? And we have. And in the, I don't, the worst thing you can do is just say, oh, well, this is the way we did it before. Let's just keep doing it, right? So we looked into what could we use this for? And this is one of those. So the fees are coming from court fees. But I think in what we've done for this year, we've absorbed more of that payroll cost than the actual fees coming in. So that's why I say you could do that 1 or 2 years, but then you basically deplete that. So the fees aren't that significant where they would be building up a huge balance in a restricted fund. And again, the reason they're restricted is as those fees come in, the court orders it, it's got to go here to here to here, right? So that's the restricted side of that.
Yeah. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Amy, we really don't have a control over the fees that go into those funds. We can't say we want to raise fines or whatever to that. I mean,
No,
the
by
fines are
statute.
state-
Yeah, they're by
That's all by
statute.
statute
Correct.
and set by the state. So
Correct.
to your point, Mike,
That was
some
my
of these
question.
we have
Yeah.
no control over. The money coming in is what it is, and it fluctuates in regards to, what the county collects.
Mhm.
And some of that money comes in and then it has to be dispersed, to a lot of different places. So
I would say most of it goes other places.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And doesn't stay here.
And there's a.
You know,
pittance that we
there's, the
get.
sheriff department has multiple funds, you know, tow fund, DUI fund. There's that's the commissary fund. We've been trying to figure out, especially like the commissary fund, what things that we do as far as our operations go can qualify under statute that money, because there's 160,000 thereabouts money sitting in the commissary fund. You know, how can we, you know, that's money that's sitting there, and that's kind of our money, but yet it's, you know, statute restricted. So trying to figure out how we can unlock that value to, so that we make the budget work. So good question. Appreciate it. Any other questions? So does everybody understand, you know, how that flows? And then there's also, when we do this, there's also the guys have an Excel file that actually is probably a little bit more user friendly as far as to see the changes that were made over the PDF. I don't know, can you pull that up, Paul? And I don't know if the Excel file is.
You're talking where we could say, hey, here's county board, and you know, this is how you would.
Yeah,
So we have-
yeah, that
yeah.
column right there.
Yeah,
So,
we have-
it's just a little bit, it's easier at a glance to be able to see, hey, there's where changes were made. And because that kind of helps, instead of having the tedious going line by line.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so we could make sure that that's in your, you know, for the 24th, we could make sure that that percentage change in there is updated for you guys, and we can go through that.
And the reason you don't have it in onboard today is on this Excel spreadsheet. If you know, the formulas in here are actually pulling from a database out of our accounting system. If you don't have access, and I think you've been, he's been working 3 months to get access and make it work. If you don't have the access to that, it doesn't pull any data for you. So I didn't want to burden you guys with a file that you can't use.
Right.
So the PDF file works in onboard where you can go through. Unfortunately, you have to look at it and then make your notes and, you know, ask the questions. But there are the different, you know, is there 16 different departments that you might want to look at, you know, and I'm hoping on there is also, you know, all the other departments that don't necessarily go through county general. And what I mean by that is the health department there, is the highway there, and like animal control, those type of things.
Right. So pop back up, if you would, back up to revenues, if you could, real quick, Paul.
Yeah, hold on here.
There's one other, we hit on it. We hit on it briefly as you started, but I really want to zero in on property tax. So this is the latest estimate that we have as far as new property and new property in here, or this is just.
Yeah, I don't want to say, we looked into the wind and said whatever, but I think this the CPI is already baked in, right? So that's based on December of 23's CPI that you can use on your levy for the 25 year, which, you know, we'll be working that as well come probably the September 24th or even into October. But that's it's 3.1 or 3.4%. So basically what this is, hey, I'm going to estimate if all things were equal, I get 3.1, 3.4% increase, right? But what we don't know yet is what is the new construction that will drive EAV, because that is what you would be able to pull as property tax. So
And the assessment office is working on that currently.
absolutely.
And, you know, we will have a meeting before the 24th, and those numbers hopefully will be updated more closely by then, as we start working through that, the full budget wrap up, start talking levy, and then move that through.
Right. So I just wanted to point that out to the committee so that, you know, that number is still very much a work in progress.
Absolutely.
Hopefully it goes up. And if it goes up, that means that's that much less that we have to pull out of capital.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not anticipating that number to change dramatically at all, but, you know, when we're down to the nub, we're talking about a couple $100,000. If we can anticipate another $50,000 in revenue from property taxes, now we're down to 150,000 we're pulling out of, you know, it is significant to our overall picture. So.
Yeah. And I would anticipate that there's probably somewhere in that $50,000 to $100,000 range of new EAV value that will be added into the levy. I can't promise you that, but I would anticipate that that could be added to that. You know, and it all depends on, you know, some of the bigger items that come on. So the growth is, if you could, you guys all know this, but yeah, growth is what can drive that. I mean, there's other counties that their growth is so expansive, their levy is actually going down. So
We can only hope to be in that position.
yeah.
So is there any more that you guys want to cover as far as today goes before the 24th?
No, I think we're good unless you guys have any other questions. I do want to make a correction on a statement I made earlier, the flock system, in regard to the flock system. It actually can flag expired license plates. I did not realize that. So I just wanted to make sure publicly I stated that I needed to correct myself. Can flag expired license plates.
So before I've asked, any other county board members, anybody have any questions? Anything you want us to cover? We've covered everything. Okay, all right. No, we got one more thing. So give them prime. You're getting them prime. Any other questions for the guys? Okay, all right. Well, we will be all ready to go on the 24th and 9 o'clock. Yeah. Yep. So, all right. So there's no action on this. This was just an information item. And so what we'll do is we'll meet on the 24th and probably that'll be another information meeting, I anticipate. And then at the regular finance committee meeting in October is when we'll make the formal recommendation to the executive committee to present the budget to the board at the October meeting, held over for 30 days and then passed in November. So, okay. All right. The last thing that we have to cover this morning, there's no action on this. There was a little bit of timing issues with this, and that was the new squad car that is actually being bought by the junior college. So this has already been paid for. It's not new money. It's money that's came in. We just had a timing issue as far as for Open Meetings Act. So if there are any questions in regards, we just wanted to get it. We're not asking for a formal vote. We're just asking for a consensus to move this on to executive committee to be placed on the agenda for the full board. Okay. All right. Any objections? Hearing none. All right. Very good. We have no executive session this morning. Is there anything else to come before the committee? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Minimes. Seconded by Dallas. All those in favor signify by standing up.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.